My name is Eleanor. I am 58 years old, and for 35 of those years, my entire world revolved around my only son, David. I was a mother, a confidant, a cheerleader, and after his father passed away when David was just a boy, I was his everything. I built my life around his needs, my dreams were extensions of his ambitions, and my savings account was a safety net I wove exclusively for him. But to my son and his new, carefully curated family, I have come to realize I was little more than a memory, a convenient story of struggle he could tell at dinner parties to make his success seem more poignant. I was a reliable emergency contact. And, most importantly, I was a walking, breathing, no questions asked automated teller machine. The love I gave was unconditional, the respect I received, however, was subject to his wife's approval and his mother-in-law's social calendar. The foundation of our relationship, once built on laughter in a tiny kitchen and bedtime stories under a worn quilt, had been systematically replaced by the cold, hard currency of transaction. And I, fool that I was, kept paying, hoping that one day my investment of love would mature and pay dividends of affection. I was wrong. The only thing that matured was my resentment, a slow-growing vine that was finally beginning to choke the hope out of me. Flashbacks are not the hazy, soft-focus memories they show in movies. For me, they are sharp, crystal-clear ledgers of sacrifice. I remember selling the house my late husband, Tom, and I had bought. It was our forever home, with a sprawling oak in the backyard, where we'd planned to hang a swing for grandchildren. But David had been accepted into a prestigious architecture program, one whose tuition fees were astronomical. So, the oak tree, the garden I had lovingly tended, the ghost of Tom's laughter in the hallway, I sold it all. I moved into a small, sensible apartment, telling myself and a heartbroken 10-year-old David that it was a new adventure. Less to clean, more time for us, I'd said, my voice bright and brittle. I can still see his small hand in mine as we walked away from that house for the last time, the weight of his trust of physical presence. That sacrifice became the first major entry in a long, one-sided account. Years later, there was the wedding. David had fallen for Chloe, a lovely girl from a wealthy family. Her mother, Beatrice, was a woman who wore her social standing like a bespoke suit. They wanted a fairy-tale wedding, something out of a magazine. David came to me, his voice laced with the manufactured anxiety he had become so good at performing. "Mom, Chloe's parents are covering the venue, but the photographer, the caterer, it's just so much. I don't want to start my marriage in debt." I looked at my retirement portfolio, the numbers I had so carefully nurtured for my own old age, and I saw another dream I could defer. I liquidated a significant portion of it. The wedding was magnificent. I sat at a table near the back, watching Beatrice hold court, accepting congratulations, as if she had single-handedly orchestrated not just the event, but David's entire existence. I received a few polite nods, the mother of the groom, a quaint, necessary prop in their grand production. The check I wrote, for $50,000, was never mentioned. It was my silent contribution, my ticket of admission to my own son's new life. After they were married, the dynamic shifted from quiet neglect to active exploitation. They bought a house in a gated community, far from my modest apartment. The down payment, of course, came from me. $75,000. It was a loan, David had assured me. He'd even drafted a fake promissory note on his computer, a meaningless document he thought would appease my accountant's sensibilities. "We'll have a whole suite for you in the basement, Mom," he'd promised, his eyes shining with sincerity. "You can come stay whenever you want. You'll never be alone." That suite never materialized. It became a home gym for Chloe, and then a wine cellar for Beatrice's ever-expanding collection. My invitations to their home became scarce, usually prompted by a need. Could I babysit their dog while they went to Aspen? Could I let in the plumber, because they were both in critical meetings? Could I front them the money for a new property tax assessment they'd forgotten about? The requests were always framed as a favor, an appeal to the family unit that I was only invited to participate in when a bill was due. I kept a spreadsheet. I couldn't help it, it's in my nature. Not for revenge, but for clarity. I needed to see the numbers in black and white to believe the story they were telling me. The down payment. The wedding. The endless small loans for car repairs, dental emergencies, and investment opportunities that never seemed to pan out. The total was staggering. It was a number that represented my future, my security, a future I had willingly signed over to him, again and again. And in return, I received text messages on holidays and gift baskets on my birthday, always chosen by Chloe or Beatrice, a sterile acknowledgement of my existence. My son, the successful architect who lived in a house I paid for, couldn't find the time to have a simple dinner with his mother. He outsourced the labor of remembering me, reducing our relationship to a task he could delegate. I was the silent, scorned provider, the ghost in his financial machine, and I was beginning to wonder what it would take to finally make me disappear completely. The weeks leading up to my 59th birthday were filled with a familiar, foolish ache of hope. It's a stubborn weed, hope. You can stamp on it, starve it of light, and douse it with the bitterest truths, and yet, a tiny green shoot will still find a way to push through the cracks of your cynicism. David had called me, a rare, unscheduled call. His voice was warm, the one he used when he was a boy, the one that could melt my resolve in an instant. "Mom, I know I've been distant," he'd said, a masterful understatement. "But I want to make it up to you. For your birthday, I'm clearing my whole schedule. Just you and me. We can go to that little seafood place you love by the water. My treat," the words hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. A whole day. Just us. It felt like a return to something real, a promise to excavate the old, loving relationship buried beneath years of neglect and entitlement. I allowed myself to believe him. I bought a new dress. I made a reservation at the restaurant, just in case he forgot. I spent the week in a state of nervous anticipation, replaying our conversation, clinging to the phrase, "just you and me," as if it were a sacred vow. This, I told myself, would be the turning point. This would be the moment the ledger was finally balanced, not with money, but with time. The day of my birthday dawned bright and clear. I woke up early, a youthful excitement fluttering in my chest. I laid out my new dress, put on a pot of coffee, and watched the clock. Our reservation was for 1 o'clock. He said he'd pick me up at noon. 10 o'clock came and went. Then 11. My calls went to his voicemail, which was full. A knot of dread began to tighten in my stomach. At 11:30, I told myself his car must have broken down. At 11:45, I imagined a work emergency he couldn't escape. At noon, the doorbell rang. My heart leaped. He was here. He was just late. I flung the door open, my practiced smile of forgiveness ready. It wasn't David. It was a delivery man, holding the largest, most ostentatious bouquet of lilies and roses I had ever seen. They were beautiful, expensive, and utterly soulless. The card was tucked inside, the message printed in a generic, flowing script. "Happy birthday, Mom. So sorry something came up. We'll celebrate soon. Love, David and Chloe." It wasn't even his handwriting. The hope inside me didn't just die, it shattered. The silence in my small apartment was suddenly immense, broken only by the loud, cloying scent of the lilies, a flower I've always associated with funerals. I felt a cold wave of clarity wash over me, so stark and brutal it left me breathless. This wasn't a gift. It was a payoff. It was a beautiful, fragrant dismissal. I finally reached him on his 5th try. His voice was rushed, background noise clinking and echoing behind him. "Mom? Hey. Did you get the flowers? They are gorgeous, right? I stood there, clutching the phone, the bouquet on my table looking like a monument to my own foolishness. "David, you promised," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You promised you would spend the day with me." There was a sigh, a sound of weary impatience I knew all too well. I know, and I am so sorry. It's just. Beatrice decided to host a last-minute dinner party tonight, for one of my firm's biggest potential clients. It's a huge deal for me. We've been running around all day getting things ready. This could be a game-changer for my career, Mom. You understand, right? I didn't say anything. I let the silence stretch, a testament to all the things I had understood over the years. Then, he delivered the final, fatal blow, a careless comment meant to be placating. "Look, I made sure you were taken care of. I even had Beatrice pick out those flowers for you. She has such amazing taste, doesn't she? She knew exactly what you'd like." The world tilted on its axis. He hadn't just forgotten. He hadn't just been busy. He had delegated the act of loving me to the very woman who had orchestrated my exile. Beatrice, the architect of my loneliness, had chosen the wreath for the tomb of our relationship. A fury, cold and pure, rose up in me. It wasn't the hot, fleeting anger of a moment's hurt. It was the deep, seismic rage of a lifetime of quiet betrayals. I looked at the flowers, then at my reflection in the dark screen of my phone. The hurt, hopeful woman was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized, someone with steel in her spine and ice in her veins. I knew, with absolute certainty, what I had to do. These flowers were not mine. And I was going to deliver them, with a message, to their rightful owner. The drive to Beatrice's house was a pilgrimage through a graveyard of broken promises. The massive, fragrant bouquet sat on the passenger seat beside me, its scent filling my small car, no longer cloying, but sharp and clarifying, like smelling salts. With every mile that passed, a new memory surfaced, not as a source of pain, but as a piece of evidence. I was no longer a grieving mother. I was a prosecutor building an airtight case. I remembered the Christmas 5 years ago, when David and Chloe had called on Christmas Eve to say they wouldn't be able to make it for our traditional dinner. Chloe's cousin had apparently flown in unexpectedly from Europe, and Beatrice was insisting the whole family be together. "We'll come by on Boxing Day, Mom, promise," David had said. Boxing Day came and went. I later saw pictures on Chloe's social media of the whole family, including David, on a spontaneous ski trip that had clearly been planned for weeks. I had eaten my Christmas dinner alone, the expensive turkey I'd bought for them sitting untouched in the fridge. Then there was the memory of David, cap in hand, asking for the down payment on his house. He'd spread the architectural drawings across my small dining table, his finger tracing the lines of a phantom room. "This will be your room, Mom. A proper guest suite with its own bathroom. You can sell this old apartment and stay with us whenever you want. We'll take care of you." For once, the words "for once" had stung, a casual dismissal of the 30 years I had spent taking care of him. But the promise of being wanted, of being physically part of his life again, was a siren song I couldn't resist. I signed the bank draft, my hand shaking slightly, not from doubt, but from the sheer, overwhelming hope of it all. That hope was now just another exhibit in the case for the prosecution. My modest car felt out of place as I turned into the manicured, sterile streets of his gated community. Each oversized house was a testament to a level of wealth I had helped create, but was never allowed to comfortably inhabit. When I pulled up to Beatrice's sprawling modern home, the party was already in full swing. Music and laughter spilled from the open windows, a warm golden light illuminating the perfect lawn. And there, parked in the curved driveway, was David's sleek, expensive car, a car I had helped him buy the year before when his old one was deemed not professional enough. For a moment, a wave of the old pain washed over me. The desire to just turn around, to go home to my quiet apartment and pretend this day never happened, was immense. But then I looked at the flowers on the seat next to me. They were a symbol. They were the sum total of my current worth in my son's eyes. An expensive, outsourced gesture of appeasement. No. I was done pretending. I was done being the quiet, understanding mother. Understanding had gotten me nothing but heartache and an empty bank account. Tonight, I would be understood. I put the car in park, my movements slow and deliberate. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. The face looking back was pale and set, but the eyes were clear. The tears were gone, burned away by the cold fire of my resolve. I was not here to crash a party. I was not here to make a scene. I was here to close an account that was long past due. I got out of the car, lifted the ridiculously large vase of flowers, and started the long walk up the stone pathway to the front door, each step feeling heavier, more final, than the last. I was a ghost walking into the light, and I was about to haunt the people who thought they had buried me. Beatrice opened the door, a flute of champagne in one hand, her face arranged in a mask of practiced, welcoming charm. The mask faltered, cracking at the edges when she saw me standing on her doorstep, holding a bouquet fit for a head of state. "Eleanor," she said, her voice a mixture of shock and disdain. "What on earth are you doing here? Is everything all right?" Her eyes darted past me, as if looking for a paramedic, the only conceivable reason I would dare to show up unannounced at one of her important gatherings. Before I could answer, David appeared behind her, drawn by the sudden chill in the air. "Mom," he asked, his smile freezing on his face as he took in the scene. "What's going on?" I looked past him, into the warm, bright house filled with laughing strangers, a world I had funded but was never invited into. I then looked directly at Beatrice, whose confusion was rapidly curdling into annoyance. With a calm that I didn't know I possessed, I held the vase of flowers out to her. "I believe there's been a delivery error," I said, my voice even and clear, cutting through the party music. "These were sent to my apartment, but they clearly belong to you." Beatrice stared at the flowers, then at me, baffled. "What are you talking about?" David stepped forward, a nervous flush creeping up his neck. "Mom, what is this?" "Those are your birthday flowers. I sent them to you." I turned my gaze to him, my son, the man-child I had spent a lifetime enabling. "No, David," I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. "You didn't send them to me. You outsourced the task of remembering my birthday. And you outsourced it to Beatrice. She chose them. She did the work. Therefore, she should get the credit." I extended the vase further towards a stunned Beatrice. "Please take them. They are a symbol of a relationship, a token of affection and priority. And it has become painfully, abundantly clear that the primary maternal relationship in my son's life is with you. So you should have the flowers." David's face went from confused to horrified as my meaning sank in. "Mom, stop it. You're making a scene." Behind him, a few of the party guests had begun to notice the drama unfolding at the door, their conversations tapering off. This was my audience. This was the jury. "A scene?" I asked, a dry, bitter laugh escaping my lips for the first time. "No, David. A scene is what you cause when you lie to your mother, when you break a promise to spend her birthday with her so you can attend a party. This is not a scene. This is a reckoning." I reached into my handbag and pulled out a single, folded sheet of paper. My spreadsheet. I had printed a summary. "You see, 4 years, I have been operating under the illusion that I was your mother. But I've been acting more like your personal bank. A bank that requires no credit check and offers interest-free, perpetually forgivable loans." I unfolded the paper. My voice was steady, almost conversational, as if I were presenting a quarterly report. "Let's review the accounts, shall we? $75,000 for the down payment on this house you share with Chloe. $50,000 for your wedding, so you could impress Beatrice's friends. An estimated $60,000 over the last 12 years in miscellaneous loans and emergencies that were never repaid. A conservative grand total of $185,000. I let the number hang in the air. A few guests gasped. Beatrice looked like she had been slapped. David was as white as a sheet. "Mom, please," he whispered, his eyes pleading. "Don't do this here." But I wasn't speaking to him anymore. I was speaking to the ghost of the hopeful woman I used to be. I was setting her free. "You're right, you can't put a price on family," I said, echoing a phrase he had used on me many times. Family is supposed to be priceless, not a line of credit. So I'm closing the account. Consider the $185,000 a final gift. A severance package. But there will be no more withdrawals. No more loans. No more last-minute requests. The bank of Mom is officially, permanently closed. I placed the flowers on the doorstep at Beatrice's feet. "Enjoy your party," I said, my voice soft now. I turned my back on my son, on his life, on the entire glittering facade I had paid for. I walked back down the stone path, and for the first time in 35 years, I didn't look back to see if he was following. The silence that followed was the most profound sound I had ever heard. In the car, I pulled over a few blocks away, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I didn't cry. The tears felt like a currency I was no longer willing to spend on David. Instead, I took a deep, shuddering breath. The air felt different, lighter. For years, I had carried the weight of his needs, the constant, low-level anxiety of being on call for his next crisis, his next request. Now, it was gone. When I got home to my blessedly quiet apartment, I saw my phone light up with a string of frantic calls and a barrage of texts. "Mom, call me, that was insane, you embarrassed me in front of my clients, Beatrice is furious, how could you do that to us?" The "us" was the most telling part. He didn't see me as part of his us anymore. And now, finally, neither did I. With a sense of ceremony, I opened his contact. I looked at the picture I had set for him years ago, a smiling, carefree boy of 10 on a beach vacation, the last one we took before his father died. I deleted the photo. Then I deleted the number. Then I blocked him. I did the same for Chloe. It was a digital amputation, swift and clean. The first few days were strange. I kept reaching for my phone, my body still programmed to expect a call, a text, a need. But there was only peace. The loneliness I had dreaded was not the gaping wound I had imagined, but a quiet, open space. A space I could finally fill with myself. I called my oldest friend, Margaret, and told her everything. She listened patiently, and when I was done, she said only 4 words, "It's about damn time." Her validation was the first beam of sunlight in my new world. On her advice, I took a portion of the money I had left, the money I had fiercely guarded from David's reach, and I booked a trip. A 2-week tour of Italy, a place my late husband and I had always dreamed of visiting. I walked through the ruins of Rome, stood in or under the Sistine Chapel, and ate gelato by the canals of Venice. I was not David's mother there. I was Eleanor. A woman of 59, discovering the world and herself for the first time. When I returned, I felt transformed. I sold my small, sensible apartment, the one that had been a cage of waiting, and bought a little cottage with a garden. It was small, but it was all mine. I started planting. Not lilies or extravagant roses that die in a week, but hardy, stubborn perennials. Lavender, salvia, echinacea. Flowers that required patience and care, that would die back in the winter but would always, without fail, return in the spring, stronger than before. I was cultivating my own resilience. I joined a book club, a hiking group, a volunteer organization. My life, once so narrowly focused on a single, ungrateful recipient, began to branch out, creating a rich tapestry of new friendships, new experiences, new joys. I was building what they call a chosen family, a community built not on obligation or blood, but on mutual respect and genuine affection. About 6 months after what I privately called the Flower Rebellion, I received an email. It was from Chloe, sent from her work address. My first instinct was to delete it. But curiosity, and perhaps a lingering sliver of something else, made me open it. The message was long and rambling, a stark contrast to her usual terse texts. She apologized profusely. She said the night of the party was a horrifying wake-up call. She admitted that her mother was a manipulative bully, and that she and David had been weak, cowardly, and monstrously selfish. She wrote about David. He was, in her words, a wreck. Beatrice's support, it turned out, was entirely transactional. When David's client was offended by the family drama and pulled out of the potential deal, Beatrice's warmth had evaporated, replaced by icy disappointment. Without my financial and emotional backstop, their perfect life was beginning to show cracks. Chloe ended the email by asking if she could see me, just her. She said she wanted to apologize in person, and, if I was willing, to get to know the woman her husband had so carelessly thrown away. I agreed to meet her for coffee, on neutral ground. She was nervous and remorseful. She didn't make excuses. She took full responsibility for her part in my erasure. It was the first honest conversation I'd ever had with her. I didn't offer immediate forgiveness, but I offered a possibility. I laid down my new, non-negotiable boundaries. Any future relationship would be on my terms, built on honesty and respect. A few weeks later, my doorbell rang. It was David, alone, looking older and tired. He didn't ask for money. He didn't make excuses. He just stood there, his eyes filled with a sorrow that, for the first time, looked genuine. "I was a terrible son," he said, his voice cracking. "I know. And I am so sorry." I looked at the man my son had become, and the boy he used to be. The anger was gone, replaced by a calm, quiet strength. "Forgiveness is a process, David," I told him, my voice gentle but firm. "It begins with you understanding the true value of what you lost. My door isn't closed forever, but it is no longer wide open. You will have to earn the right to knock." Eleanor learned a truth that many providers, caregivers, and forgotten matriarchs discover far too late. Sometimes, the most profound act of love is not to give more, but to stop giving entirely. She had to burn down the hollow structure of their transactional relationship to see if anything real could ever grow from the ashes. By reclaiming her resources, her time, and her identity, she did more than just save herself. She gave her son the only gift that could possibly save him, the devastating, clarifying consequence of her absence. She had to teach him the value of a mother by showing him, in no uncertain terms, the full cost of losing one. Her story is a testament to the fact that true self-worth is not granted by others, but is forged in the fires of self-respect. It's about learning to tend your own garden, to cultivate your own joy, and to build fences not to keep others out, but to protect the beautiful, thriving life you have built within. What do you think? Was Eleanor justified in her actions, or should she have found a quieter way to express her hurt? Share your thoughts below.